If you've ever bought a new planner, downloaded a new app, or tried some new system to manage your time and still felt totally overwhelmed, you're definitely not alone. We've all been told that if we just have the right tools, we can finally conquer our calendars. But what if that whole idea is just wrong? Okay, let's get into this.
So this is really the core question, isn't it? The reason so many of us feel like we're just spinning our wheels, busy all the time, but not actually productive, it's because we're trying to solve the wrong problem. We're so focused on the clock when we really should be looking somewhere else entirely. All right, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to unpack why we've been thinking about time all wrong. Then we'll take a look inside our own heads to understand these invisible forces that keep messing up our plans. And finally, I'm going to walk you through a really powerful 4-phase framework that's designed to take you from feeling constantly behind to feeling confidently in control.
So, what is the real problem we're dealing with? It's not about finding a better app or a fancier calendar, that's for sure. The issue is that we've been trying to manage the wrong thing this whole time. It's not about the 24 hours on the clock. This quote, it just nails it. You can't add more hours to the day. You can't slow down a minute. The only thing you can actually control is what you do with that time. So we're not managing time, we're managing our own behavior. It's a huge shift in thinking. And this slide really lays out that shift perfectly. The common view, right? Focusing on tools, calendars, apps, that's where most of us get stuck. The real breakthrough, though, comes from what we're calling the coach's view. Realizing that this is an inside game. It's all about mastering our habits, our choices, and our own psychology, not just our schedule. Do any of these hit a little too close to home? Maybe you're that professional just buried under a mountain of emails, or the creative who only gets going when a deadline is breathing down your neck. Look, these aren't just bad habits, they're patterns, and they're rooted in our psychology. Just recognizing your own pattern is a massive first step. Okay, so if we're going to break these patterns, we have to understand the why behind them. And it turns out our brains are kind of hardwired with these cognitive traps. They're like invisible forces that make managing ourselves incredibly difficult. Have you ever spent a whole morning clearing out your inbox instead of starting that one huge important project? Yep, that's task completion bias. Your brain gets this little reward, this little hit of satisfaction for every tiny task you check off. And that makes it almost addictive to stay busy with the small stuff while we put off the deep work that actually matters. And then there's this one, the planning fallacy. Think of it as your brain's overly optimistic project manager. It's the voice in your head that's absolutely convinced a 3-day task will only take, a few hours. It never seems to account for real-world stuff like interruptions or problems, and that is exactly why we overcommit and blow past our deadlines. Let's just be super clear about this one. Multitasking is a lie. We think we're being so efficient, right? But what our brain is actually doing is switching focus back and forth really, really fast. And every single switch costs us time and mental energy. The science is totally clear on this. Single tasking is the only real path to productivity. Now, this is a total game changer. Procrastination is not a character flaw. It's not laziness. It is an emotional response. We put tasks off to avoid the bad feelings that come with them, like the anxiety of a tough project or just the sheer boredom of a tedious one. It's a coping mechanism, not a time management problem. Okay, so we get the problem now, and we understand the psychology behind it. So, how do we actually fix it? Well, we use a proven 4-phase framework that takes us from awareness to action and finally to making these changes actually stick for good. The whole journey has to start with an honest look in the mirror. You just can't chart a course to a new destination until you know exactly where you are right now. This whole phase is about getting crystal clear self-awareness. So how do we get that clarity? Well, it starts with a simple time audit. Just for 1 week, track where your hours are actually going. You might be surprised. Next, you define your big rocks. These are your 3 to 5 most important priorities, the things that truly move the needle for you. And finally, you turn those priorities into SMART goals. That's specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. That becomes your North Star. All right, once you're clear on where you are and where you're going, you can start planning strategically. And this isn't just about making another to-do list. It's about making the right choices and prioritizing with real intention. And this right here is one of the most powerful tools for that. It's the Eisenhower Matrix. It helps you sort every single task. Quadrant 1, that's for fires you have to put out immediately. But the real secret to success, it's in Quadrant 2. the important but not urgent stuff. This is where strategic work and real progress happen. Your goal is to try and live in quadrant 2, not in quadrant 1. And to fight that feeling of overwhelm that always leads to procrastination, you have to break things down. A massive project feels impossible, right? But a series of small 30-minute tasks, that feels totally doable. This simple trick actually makes that task completion bias work for you, giving you those little satisfying wins that build momentum. A great plan is pretty useless if you don't execute on it. So now we're moving into the final and most critical phases. Phase 3 is all about sharpening your focus so you can actually get things done. And phase 4 is about building the systems to make those changes last for the long haul. So in phase 3, it's all about focus. This is where you literally create a deep work sanctuary, an environment you've designed to shut out distractions. It's where you truly commit to single tasking, giving one important thing your full attention. And, so important, it's about using breaks strategically, not as a luxury, but as a crucial tool to recharge your brain. And finally, phase 4, making it all stick. This really comes down to 3 key skills. First, mastering delegation, getting tasks off your plate that don't need your specific touch. Second, learning how to say no gracefully to protect your time and your priorities. And third, building in accountability. Seriously, having a coach, a mentor, or even just a friend in your corner can be the one thing that turns a temporary fix into a true transformation. Look, this doesn't have to be some endless struggle. You can systematically rewire your habits in just about 2 months. The first couple of weeks are all about awareness. The next 2 are for planning. The next 15 days are for intense practice and tweaking your system. And the final stretch is all about sustaining those new behaviors until they just become automatic. So let's just end with this. This whole thing, it's not really about just getting more stuff done. It's about making sure you're doing the right stuff, the things that actually line up with your goals, your values, what you really care about. Because at the end of the day, your time is your life. And the real question is, how are you choosing to spend it?